They are really packing those Ryogoku Hall shows next month. I am Chris with the Joshi Wrestling Recap for Stardom, February 21st, 2022, available on Stardom World. This show was the go-home show before the next Stardom pay-per-view on the 23rd, but it did more to hype up the Ryogoku shows on the 26th and 27th of March. The show itself was good, with what I would consider a great main event along with other good matches and angles. Before the first match, we were introduced to a new Stardom roster member, Miyu Matsuda. She asked that her first match be against Utami Hayashishita, and it was agreed to and would happen on March 11th at the New Blood show. The opening bout was a tag match, Hanan with Koguma versus the team of Saki Kashima and Fukigen Death. This was a fun match to open the show. Right before the bell rang, Fukigen Death and Saki Kashima ran at the Stars members with papers in hand, but were stopped in their tracks by the Kuma ears of both Hanan and Koguma. This was only temporary, and Saki hit both Hanan and Koguma with rolled up papers. This match was full of Fukigen Death shenanigans, but also Koguma silliness. Koguma and Fukigen have fun chemistry when in the ring together, while Saki Kashima and Hanan did most of the wrestling for their teams. It looked at one point Hanan had Saki's number, but after a pin attempt was broken up, Saki gained the advantage after an eye poke. That was followed by a quick flurry of offense by Saki Kashima and Fukigen Death, and Saki was able to get the pin with the Mai emblem on Hanan. The second match was a singles match between Momo Watanabe and Mina Shirakawa. After the silliness of the previous match, this was a more serious affair. Mina did get a lot of hits on Momo, but it felt like Momo Watanabe was in control the whole time. She slowed the match and gradually brought down Mina with well-timed placed kicks and knees. Mina Shirakawa's spinning forearms and back fists were looking very good in this match also. After going a bit back and forth, the match pivoted on a ref bump. Momo dragged the ref into the course of Mina's spinning back fist, taking him out. While the ref was down, Mina was able to get Momo in the Glorious Collection Mina pin for a visual 3 count before Momo escaped. While the ref was still coming to, Odotai removed a corner pad. Momo Watanabe then baited in Mina and tripped her into the exposed corner and rolled up the dazed Mina Shirakawa for a schoolboy and the pinfall victory. The next match was a trios match between Stars and Queen's Quest. For Stars we had Miyu Iwatani, Hazuki, and Momo Kogo. Queen's Quest was Azumi, Saya Kamatani, and Utami Hayashishita. Even though you know who was going to take the pin in the match, spoiler, it was Momo, it was still a good match. Momo Kogo and Utami Hayashishita started for their teams. Momo put on a strong front, but she knew that this was not going to go well. After Utami easily wins a test of strength, Momo tried to shoulder tackle her down. This did not work, and Utami easily trucked Momo over. That was pretty much the story of the match. Momo Kogo was out of her depth and had to be saved multiple times by Hazuki or Miyu Iwatani. When Hazuki or Miyu were in, the match was even, but when Momo was tagged in, she was isolated and took a beating from the other team. The superior teamwork of Queen's Quest put the match away. After dealing with Hazuki and Miyu, Utami came in and put Momo on her shoulders and dropped her while Azumi kicked Momo at the same time, and a corner double stomp by Azumi, Momo Kogo won the match for Queen's Quest. The fourth match was a trios match, and another small chapter in the book of Tom versus Julia. For Cosmic Angels we had Unagi Sayaka, Wakatsukiyama, and Tam Nakano. Donald Del Mondo's new members Mirai and Mei Sakurai with Julia. Before the match, Cosmic Angels did their dance like normal. This match was meant to highlight Wakatsukiyama and Mei Sakurai, and they both showed their growth in this match, but also showed how far they still had to go. I was expecting more fireworks to go off this match, but it was a pretty conventional match. Both groups got to show off some nice double team and triple team moves, and there were a lot of pins broken up. There was a small section where Tam Nakano and Julia were in the ring together, and that was very good. One moment to highlight in the match was when Tam offered her hand to Mei, but Mei rejected it and slapped Tam. It's not a good idea to slap Tam, and she responded to the slap with one of her own, followed by a suplex. As the match was winding down, Mei Sakurai and Wakatsukiyama traded offense, but Mei was able to get the upper hand and hit a top corner elbow drop on Waka for the pinfall win. Mei seems comfortable in Donna Del Mondo and shows no regrets about defecting from Cosmic Angels. The next match was a special tag match between Shuri and Thekla against the Prominence team of Risa Sera and Akane Fujita. Prominence is a freelance hardcore wrestling faction and has been showing up everywhere the last few months since leaving Ice Ribbon. This match was a bit of a clinic on slower paced matches. Both teams had wrestlers who were comfortable wrestling a more technical match, but also cautious, so took it slow. This match was a good way to introduce Prominence to the wider Stardom audience. Akane Fujita was able to show off her strength in striking, while Risa Sera showed off her arsenal of knees, drivers, and submissions. A couple spots I would like to talk about are when Risa Sera was able to get a very good giant swing on Tekla, and there was a section when Akane Fujita caught Tekla's kick in Tekla's hands and proceeded to headbutt the defenseless Tekla. As the timekeeper was counting down the time, Risa Sera and Syuri were trading heavy moves and strikes, but couldn't keep the other down till the bell rang. This was a time limit draw. After the match, there was a bit of a brawl, and Suzy Suzuki, the wild child of Prominence, got on the mic and called out Julia. Julie has a title match at the Ryogoku shows, so said she couldn't fight her. Suzu then accused Julia of running away, but since it is Julia's birthday, she got her a present. Suzu Suzuki then got a light tube she brought to the ring and swung it at Julia before the ref was able to intercept it and took it. And more brawling broke out. The Donna Del Mondo team to go against Prominence at the Ryogoku show next month hasn't been set yet, but there will be an announcement later. That leaves us with the main event. I had high hopes for this match, and they were exceeded. A championship match for the Artist of Stardom Trios belts between the current champions Mai Himipoi, which is Natsupoi, Himeka, and Maika, against the challengers Young Autotai, which is Rina, Uwaka, and Starlight Kid. This was a great match and had a fine dynamic. The current champs have two powerhouses, one technical wrestler, while the challengers have one powerhouse and two technical wrestlers. The match revolved around Natsupoi. Natsupoi is both the weakness of the champs, but also their strength. Natsupoi fights like a babyface while being part of a badass tweener faction, Donna Del Mondo. When Natsupoi was in the match, she would be overpowered by Uwaka, or the gang tactics of Odotai would take any advantage away from her, but she still battled on. The match wasn't only about Natsupoi. Starlight Kid shone in the match, especially when she was in the ring with Maika. Maika and Starlight Kid had great chemistry, and there was a section that felt like a lucha match, with Maika working as the base with the smaller and quicker Starlight Kid. And it looked like Odotai may win the match, having done a good job of keeping Natsupoi isolated in the match for long periods. Natsupoi was dead weight after taking the combined moves from Odotai, but with a little help from Maika, Natsupoi was able to roll up Uwaka with a La Magistral cradle pin for the surprise victory. Almost immediately, Odotai swarmed the ring and started beating up Natsupoi, and Starlight Kid was just slapping her. The newly returned Kairi, who was previously known as Kairi Sane and Kairi Hojo, who had been sitting ringside of the show, came to the ring to make the save. Starlight Kid gets on the mic and calls out Kairi for a match on night 2 of the Ryogoku Hall shows on the 27th of March. Kairi agrees, after which Starlight Kid just slaps her and leaves. Natsupoi got on the mic after Kid left and let Kairi know that she would win the Wonder of Stardom white belt from Saya Kamitani on the 23rd. When Kairi came back in her press conference, she did mention she was interested in going after the Wonder of Stardom championship, and Natsupoi wants to be her opponent, not the current champ Saya Kamitani. There was a very small thing I noticed, and I don't know if it will lead to anything, but Natsupoi did a different hand signal than DDM. Something to keep an eye on. My overall thoughts on the show were, it was great. The main event took it from a good show to a great one. I would really recommend watching the main event and the fallout of that match, alongside the Donna Del Mondo vs. Prominence match. Both matches felt different, but were good in their own ways and important story beats. The next Stardom show is a pay-per-view on the 23rd, which will be available on Stardom World a few days later. This has been the Joshi Wrestling Recap for Stardom, February 21st, 2022. Thanks for listening.